One of the patterns I see across ambitious, mid-career, and senior leaders isn't a lack of experience or skill or ability to create results. It is a chronic underestimation of their own value. And that underestimation shows up most clearly in how they talk about themselves. When you ask someone to describe their background, they often default to modesty, qualification, caveats, and long explanations. They speak about responsibilities instead of achievements, process instead of outcomes, tasks instead of leadership. This isn't because they lack confidence, it's because they lack an external mirror. The advocate introduction exists to correct this. The premise is simple. Instead of introducing yourself, you channel the voice of a mentor, manager, or advocate who knows your work at its best. Someone who has seen you lead, solve problems, deliver results, and elevate teams. Someone who speaks about you with accuracy, generosity, and altitude. Why does this work? Because there's almost always a gap between how you see yourself and how those who've benefited from your contributions see you. You tend to see your experience from the inside, the messy middle, the challenges, the parts that didn't go perfectly. They see the outcome. They see the difference you made. They see the value you created. When you introduce yourself through their voice, everything changes. Your language becomes clearer, stronger, and more grounded. Your achievements feel more factual than boastful. You stop minimizing strengths and you stop diluting your impact. You elevate your altitude without exaggeration. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to internalize the reality that your modest version of your story might actually be inaccurate. Not humble, inaccurate. You've been playing smaller than your track record warrants. The advocate introduction is not about performance or theatrics. It's about calibration. It helps bridge the distance between your internal narrative and the external truth of how others have experienced your leadership. And that calibration matters deeply in the job search, because the job search is fundamentally a communications exercise. It's about clarity, confidence, and articulation. If you can't express your value with conviction, hiring managers can't feel conviction about choosing you. If you communicate uncertainty about your strengths, they will mirror that uncertainty, even subconsciously. If you speak in modest, overly qualified language, you'll be perceived as someone who performs below the level of your actual capability. Confidence in the job search isn't about ego. It's about alignment, aligning your inner story with your true track record. The advocate introduction is a tool to help you hear what that alignment sounds like. And once you hear it, you can begin practicing it. And once you practice it, you can begin communicating at the altitude of your next role. That is when your job search becomes not just strategic and busy, but productive and even transformational.